We keep talking the new Giants way and Giants culture with former players. This guy was a first-round draft pick out of Boston College and a two-time Super Bowl champ. Let's bring in Mathias Kiwanuka, baby. And you know what? We're honest on this Blue Rush on this podcast. I said second-round draft pick on the first take. Kiwi stopped us and was like first-round draft pick. My bad, Kiwi. My bad.
I snuck in there, man. 32. I just made it. It's all good though.
Paul.
Mathias, good to see you. I covered your whole career. I thought you were always a stand-up guy in the locker room, said what you had to say, didn't look for attention, but didn't shy away from it either. Take me inside what you think is going on in the Giants locker room, where they come back off the bye and hear this news about one of their star players, Xavier McKinney, who was in Cabo, Mexico, breaks fingers in his hand in an accident. You lived through the Plaxico Burress stuff, but it was a little different. I think it's a different situation. What are players thinking? Are they blaming him? Are they patting him on the back? Take me in there as a player when one of your brothers, a really good player, this happens to.
I think the first thing you got to do is you got to rally around him. You got to understand that it is an injury. He's probably already going to be tough on himself. And if you know him as a person, you just want to make sure that he's going to be okay physically and mentally. So that's the very first thing. And then you start looking at the football aspect of it. What does that mean? What does that mean for our team and for our chances? When you lose a key component or a signal caller or somebody who's a big piece of the defense, it does things and it makes other people have to be thrust into situations that they're not normally accustomed to, right? So you have a backup guy who's gonna be asked to come in and fill the role physically, but there's also the intangibles that people bring to the game. And you've been in a locker room, you understand that there are guys who we like to call force multipliers, right? So just because they're out there, just because they're at practice and they're player coaching and they're helping other people get lined up, those are the things that are most difficult to replace and the things that most people don't realize what's going on. So I think to answer your question shortly, first and foremost, you want to make sure that player and individual is going to be okay physically and mentally and emotionally. And then you want to get him replaced, not just on the field, but get all the intangibles that he brought to the table replaced. So there's a lot of distribution of power that's going to have to be taken over.
So that's the locker room mindset of it all. But let's talk about the individual player, his mindset. Remember, back in 2007, you had gotten switched from DN to strong side linebacker. You were playing, you were starting. That's that Super Bowl year. You broke your leg. You had to sit back and watch while everyone was practicing and playing, and we went on that run to the Super Bowl. What was going through your mind then, and what's going to go through X's mind as he sits and he watched a 6-2 team continue to go after playoffs and possibly a Super Bowl?
Yeah, so the situation I was in, it was very unique. I started 10 games. Like you said, I was moved from defensive end, my natural position, to outside linebacker. I was being asked to do things that were outside of my skill set, right, outside of my expertise, and then lo and behold, I get injured. So immediately your focus is just on yourself, right? It's a very selfish feeling. When am I going to get better? When am I going to heal? And then your mindset goes on to the team. You want the team to do well. And that's where the issues start to come in. You want the team to do well, but you so badly want to be a part of that success that it, if it's not dealt with appropriately, if you don't get counseling or get the help that you need, to have an ear or somebody to speak to honestly about how you're feeling, it can fester and it can eat you up inside. I was fortunate enough to be able to come back a few years later and reach and win another Super Bowl, actually being out there on the field. But I understand most players don't get that chance. We both played with guys who were in the league for 10 plus years and never made it out of the first round of the playoffs. So these opportunities are few and far between. I think where he's at right now, is just to get the best treatment that he can. So you want to make sure that you're crossing all your T's, you're dotting all your I's, you're seeing all the best specialists, and the Giants will do a good job. They'll fly him around to wherever he needs to go to make sure that the injury is handled the best that it possibly can. And then you start dealing with the emotional aspect or the mental aspect. You got to make sure that you're still in your book. You got to make sure that you keep up with everything that's going on in the building, because if and when you do get that chance to come back, it's not going to be the same situation that you left. As the season goes on, things get added and things get removed from the playbook on both sides of the ball. So there's a lot that has to be done in terms of mental reps. That's one of the most difficult things to do as a player, is to get the same out of mental reps that you do from physical reps. That's very difficult. So once he gets the physical part taken care of, then he's got to get the book work part understood and transform into a book learner instead of being an on the field learner. And then he's also got to deal with the emotional part of it. And that's probably the longest lasting and the most difficult, in all honesty, because this is a game, but it's what you've dedicated your entire life to. It's what you wake up in the morning. It's what you go to sleep at night thinking about. Your whole family dynamic is structured around you being good at this sport. So it's very difficult.
Dang, Kiwi, that was like a speech off that show, All American, bro. That's a CW TV show speech right there. I like it, man. I'm going to play you in your biopic, man. Go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, that's all right. Mathias, this is before your time. I used to ask the former Giants general manager, George Young, who does this player remind you of when he was drafted, right? And he would say, I don't believe in reincarnation. I'm not saying this guy is this guy because it puts too much pressure on that guy, okay? So I'm not saying Kayvon Thibodeaux reminds me of you or maybe a little OC, but he's long. What have you seen from him? He missed the first 2 games. He's played pretty well. What have you seen from him? Because that's your position, outside linebacker, defensive end. And is there a risk of frustration because his numbers are not there? And he was a high first-round pick, right? So we're going to start looking at him and saying, well, he's only got this many sacks. He's only got this many sacks. What's the vibe there that you're sensing with Kayvon?
I think when you look at him on film, a lot of the components that you just can't teach are there, right? So he shows up in big games when the pressure's on. He has a tendency to perform, and that's something that either you have it or you don't. So that's really good. When I look at him, his attack, his get off is good, meaning like his ability to get off at the same time that the ball is being snapped. His pad level is low. I'd like to see him to continue to use that length a little bit more and extend those arms. We have a tendency as long arm guys to try to slap or chop, and it allows the offensive tackles or offensive linemen to get into our body. I'd like to see him use that consistently and extend and keep that high motor running. But I mean, the sky is the limit. At the beginning of this season, I was looking forward to he and also Azeez Ojulari, being all in the mix, because as you can be a dominant force, you could be a dominant pass rusher, but you need other components. You need other parts, other teammates. You need somebody else and other people on the line, which they do have up in the middle, but you need consistently other people who are going to be able to attack their one-on-one blocks and get you freed up. So right now, I wouldn't put so much emphasis on the numbers. This is one of those seasons where it's like, hey, listen, come in, give us your all, and let's get this team to where we need to be. And then individually, during the offseason, that's when you go back and you look at every single play and say, what could I do different here? What could I do different there? And I think, he's got a huge ceiling. So he's in a good spot.
Kiwi came on dropping dimes, man. I wish we had more time to talk to you, bro. And congratulations with Wandering Wines, your wine company, everything you're doing off the field, man. You are the Giants way. You are Giants culture. And thanks for taking the time out for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, guys.